Welcome to the Liberty Watchdog Network, a highly enlightening show that discusses America's founding principles and how they still apply today. Learn what our government was intended to be, how it has gotten out of control, and what you can do about it. The Constitution is in crisis. If you are a concerned American about the direction of this country, then you are not alone and must tune in every Wednesday at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You can't defend what you don't know. Learn it or lose it. Please be sober-minded that what we are about to share will be shocking to you. I am your Son of the American Revolution host and LibertyWatchdog.com founder, Nate Green. So let's explore our nation's founding principles of liberty. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Today is November 29th, 2017. And I hope you welcome us back after we've taken off a few weeks due to the holidays with Thanksgiving and family events. And so we are back in full swing. And I just wanted to bring up some of the troubling news as of late in regards to some unconstitutional usurpation related to, of course, the Supreme Court, which has in reality become a kangaroo court. It has nothing to do with holding up the Constitution and the Bill of Rights and the de jure Constitution, God's natural law as it was intended. The Supreme Court has taken rather an unthinkable stance on two Second Amendment cases this past year, one from Maryland and the other from Florida. The top court has decided that laws banning assault weapons and open carry will remain. The Supreme Court has declined to review the bans and even refused to comment on the two cases. And if you've listened to the past few shows, we've made it abundantly clear that the Founding Fathers specifically said that the right to bear arms shall not be infringed. It is a guaranteed right. And for the High Court of this land to ignore this fundamental guaranteed right set up by the government of the people, by the people, for the people is an absolute usurpation. And this is something that Congress, unfortunately, they won't, but they should address this issue. And so I challenge you to contact your non-representing representatives and declare that they follow and adhere to the law of this land, not what has been totally ignored. Now, I would also like to point out that this absolute insanity that you are seeing going around our nation in regards to groping or sexual assault or charges of, let me remind you that the process of law declares that you are innocent until proven guilty. And sadly, folks, we are seeing people throughout America being fired from their jobs in the sense of being guilty before proven innocent. And it's just gotten out of hand. And this is another example of a godless society that has focused on mainly just a perception or opinion, and that becomes the trial process to a person's existence. Let me remind you that if you were to put yourself in that situation and it happened to you by charges that were against you for something that you did not do, what would happen if you lost your job? What would you have for recourse when your name has been tarnished and you may have done absolutely nothing wrong? Now, I'm not saying that these things did not take place and that there are evil people in this world that get away with this stuff. In fact, it's been known, ever since you were a child, you probably heard that, hey, the only way to the top is to sleep with somebody. Well, we're starting to see that there's some truth to that. But at the same time, you also have opportunists and people that are coming out of the woodwork from something that may have or may not have taken place over 30 years ago. And so you have to really analyze this and say, what is going on? And it seems like everybody is looking for their chance in the limelight today, and it's a really sad state of affairs. And again, it goes down to what happens when you call evil good and good evil. Anything goes. And so there's going to be a lot more to come in this, unfortunately, as we see the destruction of our moral values and our virtue. And we don't have an inner barometer anymore to guide us as we once did in the early part of this nation. Now, granted, throughout society and throughout the years of history, one thing is for certain, is we live in an evil world. Christ even stated that the ruler of this world is Satan. But until we remember that and get back to that moral barometer and guidance through God's natural law, then unfortunately we're going to live by man's edicts or opinions and creeds, and we'll continually wonder, why are we failing? Why are we living by the definition of insanity? Some other sad news is that Minnesota College actually calls police on a student who said the word trainee on the radio. Ladies and gentlemen, the violation of our free speech is becoming rampant in America today. We can't even say a word without being guilty of committing a sin to another human being. Not a sin to God, but another human being. And as we allow this to happen throughout society, you're going to see where the state and the communist socialist agenda becomes more and more of the norm until you get educated about the fundamental providential principles of liberty that are the basis to why you and me are here today. Whether you want to believe in them or not, this is what people fought and died for the sake of true liberty. Not what man gives you, but what God gives you. And there's a big difference. The difference is in understanding the difference between a vested right and an inherent right. And until you understand the definition of those two simple words, then you will accept the loss of liberty as being a blessing to freedom. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to go over some of the 101 constitutional questions to ask candidates. Because so many millions of Americans finally realize that something is seriously wrong with the way the government is handling our affairs. People are continually asking, do you think there is still time to turn it around? When you ask, still time before what? They usually reply, before total disaster overtakes us. That's their question. For those who wonder about such things, the answer is yes, there is still time, but not much. The question really should be, what can we do to get America turned around and regain our national sanity? And the answer is simple. Elect a president and a majority in Congress who still believe in the Constitution and will fight to return America to her original sound moorings. And the only way you can do that is by electing and discerning a true godly statesman. And how do you do that? Well, there's some questions that you can ask. Simple, direct questions that'll help you to understand and discern a statesman versus a non-representing politician. Because we don't want politicians. We don't want people that are beholden just to parties. Parties are the problem. The founders knew that parties would bring faction to our liberty. Because the person no longer looks to the Constitution. They look to their party platform or follow the money. Who's funding them? And that's really who they're beholden to. What kind of questions should you ask? So, we're going to list a few of the many questions which might be addressed to a candidate in order to determine whether or not he or she stands for those basic principles advocated by the Founding Fathers. As we go through these questions, you will note that nearly all of them can be easily answered by anyone who has attended the Constitutional Boot Camp or has listened to our podcast, our show. In the text, of course, the answers are, all of these questions are explained and documented. Okay, the questions that we've come up with here are based on true history. And if your candidate does not know the answers, invite him to take the Constitutional Boot Camp sooner than later. And the first question I'm going to ask you is, under the Constitution, who has the sovereign authority to govern? Who would that be? Who has the sovereign authority to govern? Would it be just the president? Congress? Well, the answer is actually simple. The founders said it is the people, by God's own allowance. No branch or agency of the government should be allowed to operate in violation of the expressed will of the people. Their collective will set forth the Constitution and the laws passed by the people's statesmen representatives. And that's it in a nutshell, folks. So I want you to go back and replay this podcast as I do some of these questions and answers. And we're just going to go through 3 of them today. So, number 2, in what way are all men created equal? How are we created equal? Are we created equal in the eyes of man or in the eyes of God? The answer is all humanity are equal in 3 ways. Number 1, we are equal before God. Number 2, we are equal before the law, which is based on God's law. And number 3, we are equal in their rights. In all other respects, people are different. So we're equal before God, we're equal before the law, and we're equal in our rights. And remember, rights don't come from man. Rights come from God. And this is the fundamental principle that is the basis to the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution of the United States, including the Bill of Rights. 95% of the Constitution of the United States is taken right out of the Bible, the Geneva Bible, the founding Bible of this country. And you probably never heard of that before. It's important to learn why that was used as the guiding for the Constitution. So the third question for today is, what is an inalienable right? Do you have any idea? Because this is something that the average person, nor members of Congress, or your local representatives in your state government, local government, county government, city government, they don't even know. And the answer is very simple. It's one sentence. An inalienable right is one which comes as an endowment from the Creator and cannot be violated without coming under the judgment of God. Let me say that again. An inalienable right is one which comes as an endowment from the Creator, our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, and cannot be violated without coming under the judgment of Him. Now, the reason why no one's going to ever answer that question correctly is because of what I just spoke. It's about God. And this is the problem we're witnessing today in society, is that the further society drifts from the truth, the more it will hate those that speak it. And we're seeing it within our colleges, our universities, high schools, all of our educational curriculum, our governments, our state governments, local governments are eradicating our nation's true history. You're seeing statues and monuments taken down because it's offensive, but it's not offensive to see the evils that are happening in this world. It's not offensive to see a young guy walking down the street with his pants hanging halfway down to his knees. That's okay. It's not offensive to see that a college student is having the police show up because he used the word trainee. That's not offensive. It's not offensive to see all the smut that we witness on TV that we expose our children to. At what point do you say enough is enough? In closing, I challenge you to become a LibertyWatchdog.com partner and help us spread the truth of the founding of our country. To help educate people about what the meaning of the right to bear arms shall not be infringed. To learn why it's important to have a moral barometer in your life. That without it, there is no freedom, there is no liberty. Because you live by man's opinion and not the true natural rule of law. I'm Nate Green. I look forward to seeing you Wednesday at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. May God bless you and may God bless America.